I'm Charlie, and I've owned a Cessna 182 for 10 years now, and I've learned a ton in the process. So if I was buying an airplane this year, this video is exactly what I'd do. Let me try to save you money and months of research, starting with step 0, which most people do way too late in the process. And that's to start looking for a hangar right now, which might sound counterintuitive because you're like, well, I don't have the plane yet, that's why I'm watching this video. But trust me, the hangar shortage is way worse than you probably realize, and you need to start looking right now. So a few quick things that I would do. First, I would call your local airport, join a waiting list for a T hangar. It's probably long, but go ahead and get on there. And then I would also join your local EAA chapter. It's a great way to start building your local aviation network. And through that chapter, you might be able to get some leads on either upcoming hangar space or people with larger hangars that are open to, giving you some of that space and subleasing to you or whatnot. And then I would reach out to the FBOs at your airport, which a lot of people don't think of, but reach out to the FBO at your airport and airports near you and see if they have any sort of like long-term options. You might be surprised what you find there because some of them might have extra space and can take you on as a long-term client. And then basically just repeat that process for other airports in your area. Basically, you want to put as many lines in the water as you possibly can. There's no secret formula to this. You just got to do the work. The next thing I do is get a handle on your budget. And importantly, this is not just your budget for buying. That's what most people think. Well, the plane is 100K or whatever it is. It's not that that's going to be the problem. It's not the horse that gets you. It's the hay. You got to really budget all of the ongoing operating and ownership costs. And those costs of owning are made up of two parts. You got fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs occur regardless of whether or not you fly. It's the hangar, insurance, annual inspection, that sort of thing. Variable costs happen anytime you actually fly. It's mainly fuel, but there's some others as well. So the more you fly, your fixed costs don't change, but they are spread out across more flight hours. And meanwhile, you incur variable expenses every time you start that engine. Now, there are several moving pieces here, and so to make things easier, I put a financial model together that you can use for free. And in fact, I actually put together a whole airplane buying roadmap that provides steps A through Z of the process. And when you get that roadmap, you'll also get that budgeting spreadsheet at the same time. And you can get all of this for free over at airplaneacademy.com/roadmap, or you can also scan the QR code on the screen. The link is also down in the description. So you can figure out a high level what it's going to cost you on a monthly basis, annual basis, or even per flight hour. So I hope this can help you. Now, granted, this is going to be a little bit of a back and forth exercise because once you kind of figure out the purchase price range, you'll be like, oh, okay, maybe a Cessna 182 is right for me. And then you go back into the model and start populating the specifics like fuel burn and insurance costs for that particular plane. And then that gives you a new monthly model. Like, it's going to be a little bit of back and forth, but that's okay. Try to get something close, and that'll take you to this next step, finding your right airplane. And the key to doing that is to find the airplane that fits your average mission like 80% of the time. You're more than likely not going to find an airplane that can do anything and everything you ever wanted it to do, because airplanes are all about trade-offs. But find something that can accomplish 80% of your average mission, and that is a great starting point. And the way that you can uncover what that is going to be is through what I call the 6-point mission. So if you answer these 6 questions, this will help you identify what kind of plane you need. First is budget. What is your budget for the purchase price and for the ongoing operation of the aircraft? The previous step we just covered will help determine that. And so knowing your budget range will start to really include and exclude certain types of aircraft. So that's a really helpful starting point. Next is useful load. How much do you routinely need to carry between people and stuff? Third is number of seats. How many people do you actually need to carry? And remember that just because an airplane has 4 seats doesn't mean it can realistically carry 4 seats. There's plenty of airplanes that look like they can fit 4 people, but once you put in fuel and bags and everything else and you want to go more than like 10 miles, you just can't do it. So sometimes if you routinely need 4 people, you might be looking at a 6-seat aircraft. So keep that in mind. Fourth is speed. How fast do you actually need to go? Not how fast do you want to go, Maverick, but how fast do you need to go? And I would really just look at this in practical terms. Like if you take a 200 nautical mile trip and you compare an airplane that's like 160 knots versus like 140, 45 knots or something, the difference is going to be like 8 minutes. Like it's hardly noticeable. So I would say unless you're routinely needing to go far and fast, and some people do have that mission, but unless that's your average mission, you got to think about it in practical terms. Like 20 knot difference is not going to be that big of a deal, in my opinion. It might be for you, but keep it all in context. Now, range also needs to be thought about practically. Like I have never once pulled my airplane back into a max range configuration. I've just never done it because practically speaking, you're probably only flying like a few hours at a time, and then your legs and your bladder both need a break. So I wouldn't let range be like the deciding factor in a plane unless that's your mission. Like you really need the legs. One place that range can come in handy is that like in my 182, I'm not flying 5 or 6 hours at a time, but it's nice that like I don't always need gas before every single flight. Like I can do multiple legs without refueling if I need to. So you just have to think about range from a practical perspective. You're probably not going to fly the max range of that airplane unless that's actually your mission. And then last is equipment. How do you need the aircraft equipped? You need it to be capable of flying IFR, or maybe it's VFR only. But think about what kind of flying you're going to be doing. And when you start to answer all these with a realistic view and not an aspirational viewpoint, you'll start to identify the types of airplanes that can actually fit that type of mission within your budget. Doesn't take long before you can start to figure out the right plane. For me, like a Cessna 182 perfectly fit my mission. It was within my budget. And I will just say this, just as like I'm not paid to say this, but I'm a huge 182 fan. If you want an airplane that is not great at anything, but it is good at legitimately everything, that is your plane. Like, it's awesome. I figured if it was the first and last airplane that I ever bought, it could do a little bit of everything. And that has really held true. And it is just awesome. I've never met a 182 owner that regretted owning a 182. Maybe their mission changed and they wanted to go higher, faster, farther, longer, whatever. But it is an awesome airplane. So if I could just tell you, like, buy the 182. Here's the thing, regardless of what airplane you decide you want, this is a really, really important step. Like say you want a 182, you start looking on Trade-A-Plane and you're like, oh, well, these models or these date ranges are like significantly cheaper. These are more within my budget. You need to understand there's a reason for that. It's not necessarily a reason not to buy the airplane, but all the different models, like they change things on the different models. Sometimes they changed a lot, sometimes they didn't change very much. But sticking with the 182 example, there's a really cool organization called the Cessna Pilots Association. The CPA has a really cool resource where they documented every single model of Cessna aircraft, and they talked about what changed, how many they made, and what changed in every single model. So you can start to have an informed opinion on maybe why this model of aircraft, like if you just got the next version of it, they're worth a lot more because they changed these certain things that were a lot more desirable. And so that would be the next thing, is to go find these type clubs or these type groups or associations for the type of airplane you want, and then start understanding the differences in the different models. Another thing you can do in these groups is post in the forums and saying, hey, I'm wanting, a 182. I think I like the P model. Are there any other owners in here that can speak to the pros and cons, or anything I should be thinking about as I'm considering this airplane? I think this one fits in my budget, but are there any red flags I'm not considering? And those types of communities generally love to help new owners and new people joining. Another reason to join these ownership groups is to ask about an agent. If you're wanting to use a broker, to go ask them, hey, who did you use? Is there someone in here, or of like, who's the 182 guy? Ask those groups, because that would be my first stop to go look for a buying agent for sure. But these groups in general can just be a wealth of information if you'll take the time to seek them out. Now, once you know what kind of airplane you're going to be looking for, it is time to start looking at what's out there for sale, looking at listings. And this is the really exciting part, because things are start coming together. But there's a really important warning here. If you are not careful, and I did this, you are going to start to let emotions take over, because you're like, all right, I want a 182, sticking with the 182 example. And you're going to look at a picture and you're like, there it is. That's the one that I'm taking my family to the beach or in the mountains or whatever. And like this vessel is where all my dreams come true. And like, you're going to look at it, and then all of your like objectivity and your ability to reason is just going to go out the window. I promise you, you're probably saying right now, you're like, no, I'm not. Like, you will, just trust me. And so you want to approach looking at listings as Sherlock Holmes. You're trying to figure out everything that is wrong with this airplane, because if you read closely enough, a lot of times they will word things in a way they're like, oh, if I didn't let emotions get the best of me, I can actually see what they're saying and realize that is a red flag. So here are some things that I look for in listings: the price, the year, and the model. You want to take note to the registration, if it's US based or not. And then on pictures, take particular notice of the airplane itself, but also its surroundings. Because sometimes you can tell a lot about how an airplane was probably treated just by the environment it was in, or by the degree to which the owner cared to take good pictures of the airplane. I just don't overlook that stuff. Look at the location and take particular note to like humid environments, because those might be susceptible to corrosion. Look at the total time on the airplane. Look at the engine time, and also take note of the date of the last overhaul, because it might only have 100 hours on the engine, but if that was done 20 years ago, like the airplane has only flown 5 hours a year. you want to take note of those things. You obviously want to look at the equipment that is installed, like the avionics and such. You can also look at any modifications that it has. And then these last two in particular, you really want to take notice of. One is damage history, to see what it's been through. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but if it has any damage history, you're going to want to obviously know what happened, how it was handled, how it was documented, that sort of thing. And then you also want to know if it has complete or lost logbooks. The logbooks are the provable history of the airplane. It's diary, so to speak. And so if they are missing for some portion of time, it's basically just a black hole. Like, we can't prove what happened during that time. We also can't prove what didn't happen during that time. And so a lot of times you might see an airplane, you're like, oh, this looks like a good deal. It's probably a good deal because it's missing some of its logbooks or it has damage history or something. So don't get too excited if you see an airplane that looks like a bargain. It's probably one of these two things creating it to be a bargain, and you just want to have your Sherlock hat on as you read through that. Now, this is really, really important. As you are going through listings, there's one thing you can do that will either make this hugely valuable or potentially a gigantic waste of time, and that is to document your research through building a comp model. This is just a data set of comparables. So that way you can train your eye to know like a good deal or a really good airplane when you found one, because you can compare it to all the other ones you've already looked at. So the way that I would do this is just set up a really simple spreadsheet and put these things in it in columns. Put a link to the listing, the tail number, the year, model, asking price, total time, engine time, propeller time, exterior/paint, and this is where it gets a little subjective. Just use like a 1 to 3 grade. 1 can be the highest or the lowest as long as you're consistent. We're just trying to take something that's subjective and make it objective or numerical so that it's more concrete. Don't do like 1 to 10 because then you're like, well, what's the difference in a 7 or an 8 or a 6 or whatever? Keep it simple. Do 1 to 3, stick with that. And the same way, grade interior 1 to 3, avionics 1 to 3, upgrades or modifications 1 to 3, and then yes, no for either complete logbooks or damage history. And if you just take the extra minute to just write this, you're already looking at this stuff anyway, so if you just take the extra minute to write it down, I promise it's not only going to help you and probably save you time and money, but importantly, like when you find the airplane that you want to go in on, you're gonna be able to do that with more confidence because you can compare it to all the other ones you've already looked at, and it's not just like a gut feeling or something like that. So you can turn this from a daydream session into like a really practical exercise if you'll take the time to just write it down. Now, I know there's a lot of information in this video. It's a lot to digest, but remember, as a Cliff Notes version, you can grab the airplane buying roadmap over at airplaneacademy.com/roadmap. It's gonna remind you of everything I've said and everything I'm about to say and put it as like a step-by-step process. It's totally free. The link is down in the description. Really hope that it can help you. So now we get into the buying process. So while you're looking at listings, there are a few things worth doing in the background. So that way, once you find a listing you like, you can be in position to actually pursue it. First is to get your pre-approval for financing if you're financing the aircraft. This is similar to what you do on a house. Like, it's helpful to have your pre-approval letter lined up for a certain purchase price before you make an offer. Second, you want to contact your aviation insurance agent and make sure they're aware of your intentions. Now, while you won't know the exact airplane yet, like a tail number necessarily, it would be really smart to get their input on your ability to be insured in that kind of airplane at first. You don't want to buy a plane or be at the very end and then figure out how to get insurance on it or find out you might not be able to get insurance on it. And so you can start those conversations with insurance agents even while you're still in the research process. Third, ideally you want to know who is going to be doing your pre-buy inspection, so that way they're ready to mobilize once you find the airplane, because it can happen kind of quickly. Now, if you already know what airport you're going to be based at, the mechanic on the field, assuming there is one, would be a good place to start, like if that's where you plan on getting your maintenance done, and ask them if they do pre-buys and they can travel with you. Alternatively, you can also join your local EAA chapter and ask around for a mechanic that can do your pre-buy within that group. But then also, if you join an association for the kind of airplane you're wanting to buy, like I talked about earlier, asking in the forums there might help uncover some recommendations on people that you can use that are skilled in that particular type of aircraft. Or there's some other services like Savvy Aviation, Mike Bush's company. They do pre-buy inspections and stuff. I have not used them, so I cannot speak to it. But there are services out there that specifically do pre-buys. The big thing here is you don't want to let the seller's mechanic do the pre-buy for you. Or if it like just got out of annual inspection, just say, well, it just got out of annual, you know, we just fixed everything. We just looked at everything. Can that suffice as the pre-buy? No, just like buying a house, like you want to have your own people look into it and have an objective third party help you. Fourth, you want to make your bank aware of what you're going to be doing, so that way you know who to contact if you need to make certain wire, or how they're going to contact you to approve a wire or something. You just don't want to have anything rejected, or like you're trying to hit the wire cutoff to finish the process and the bank is like, this is fraud. Like, no, this is not fraud. I'm trying to hit the wire cutoff because we're trying to finish the deal or whatever. So you just want to talk to your banking institution, give them a heads up and understand how that's going to work and if there's anything they need from you in the process. Fifth, you want to know where the airplane is going. So you might not have a hangar yet, but hopefully if you implemented the thing I said at the very beginning of this video, you at least have an FBO or something that can take you on for a little while. So having these things in place are going to help you move quickly when you find the right airplane worth moving quickly on, and it's going to set you apart as a more legitimate buyer because you have all your ducks in a row. And once you find that listing that you want to pursue, typically you'll get on the phone with the selling agent, try to get them to hold the airplane for you while you come out and look at it. And a lot of brokers will honor their word and not sell it from under you if you can get out there reasonably quick. And in addition to seeing the airplane, flying it, you're also going to be doing that pre-buy inspection and then working through some paperwork and wiring of money and stuff to complete the deal. If you'd like to know more about the pre-buy inspection and the actual paperwork and how the transaction, actually takes place, I talk about it towards the end of the video that I will link up in the description. But here's the thing, the reality of airplane ownership really surprised me in several ways. And in the video on the screen, I'm going to share exactly what that was so that way you won't be caught off guard by it. So I will see you in that video.